England has a somewhat unjustified negative association with food and cuisine, with the country coming a respectable 7th place in countries with the most amount of Michelin-starred restaurants. However, the nation has produced some decidedly strange food products throughout the ages. Here are just 10 of them. Number 10. The Cornish Nettle Yarg. This is a Cornish cow's milk cheese coated in wild, sting-free nettle leaves that stick to the rind to form a mouldy layer that lends the finished cheese a strange mushroom-like flavour. The cheese is produced at Linha Dairies Cheese Company on Pencreep Farm near Truro by Catherine Mead, Dane Hopkins and team. Yarg is simply grey, spelled backwards. It is named after Alan and Jenny Gray, enterprising farmers who found a 1615 recipe by Gervase Markham for a nettle-wrapped semi-hard cheese in their attic. The original recipe is thought to date back to the 13th century. A seriously old piece of cheese. Number 9. Stargazy Pie. This very odd-looking pie features whole pilchards covered in a pastry crust, which is then cut to allow the fish heads to poke out. The pie originates from the fishing village of Mousehole in Cornwall. As with many parts of Cornish heritage, a legend has appeared about its origins. In this case, the pie is served to celebrate the bravery of Tom Bourcock, a local fisherman in the 16th century. The legend explains that one winter had been particularly stormy, meaning that none of the fishing boats had been able to leave the harbour. As Christmas approached, the villagers, who relied on fish as their primary source of food, were facing starvation. On the 23rd of December, Tom Bourcock decided to brave the storms and went out in his fishing boat. Despite the stormy weather and the difficult seas, he managed to catch enough fish to feed the entire village. The entire catch, including 7 types of fish, was baked into a pie which had the fish heads poking through to prove that there were fish inside. Ever since then, the Tom Bourcock's Eve festival is held on the 23rd of December in Mousehole. The celebration and memorial to the efforts of Tom Bourcock sees the villagers parading a huge Stargazy pie during the evening with a procession of handmade lanterns before eating the pie itself. Yum yum. Number 8. Laver Bread. Laver is actually a Welsh term for boiled and pulped seaweed. The dish is also referred to as Welsh caviar, though as seaweed is available for free on most beaches. Laver bread is a bit cheaper than its more expensive look-alike. Cultivation of laver seaweed as food is thought to be very ancient, though the first mention was in William Camden's Britannia in the early 17th century. It is plucked from the rocks and given a preliminary rinse in clear water. The collected laver seaweed is repeatedly washed to remove sand, then boiled until it becomes a stiff green puree with a smooth consistency. Alternatively, steaming is utilised, which speeds up the process. Once prepared, the seaweed can be preserved for about a week. During the 18th century, the product was packed into a crock and sold as potted laver. Number 7. Jellied Eels. This dish consists of chopped eels that are boiled in a fish broth made from vinegar, water, lemon and other spices. rises. When it cools, the liquid around the eel becomes a more solid and jelly-like substance. It is then served cold. Eels were historically a cheap, nutritious and readily available food source for the people of London. European eels were once so common in the Thames that nets were set as far upriver as London itself, and eels became a staple for London's poor. The earliest known eel, pie and mash houses opened in London in the 18th century, and the oldest surviving shop, M. Mance, has been open since 1902. At the end of the Second World War, there were around 100 eel, pie and mash houses in London. In 1995, there were 87. Number 6. The Bedfordshire Clanger. The clanger dates back to at least the 19th century and is still available at various bakers and served at some cafes, restaurants and local places of interest. The word clanger is related to the dialect term clung, which Joseph Wright glossed as meaning heavy in relation to food. The clanger itself is an elongated suet crust dumpling, sometimes described as a savoury type of roly-poly pudding. Its name may also refer to its dense consistency. Wright's 19th century English dialect dictionary recorded the phrase clung dumplings from Bedfordshire, citing clungy and clangy as adjectives meaning heavy or close textured. They were historically made by women for their husbands to take to their agricultural work as a midday meal. It has been suggested that the crust was not originally intended for consumption, but to protect the fillings from the soiled hands of the workers. They could be eaten cold or warmed by being wrapped in damp newspaper under a brazier. Sometimes they were associated with the hat makers of the Luton district. Savoury on one hearth and sweet on the other, it served as a lovely complete meal in one. Number 5. The Pasty Balm. A pasty balm, which is also known as a pasty balm cake, or a pasty flour cake, or even a Wigan kebab, is a delicacy native to Bolton, a town in northwest England. The pasty balm consists of a buttered balm cake with a standard meat and potato pasty as the filling. The snack was supposedly invented by Bolton schoolboys in the 1950s as a cheap dinner. In 2010, it was voted as Bolton's favourite snack in the local newspaper Bolton News. In 2012, the boxer and Bolton native Amir Khan mentioned plans to introduce his American fiancée to a pasty balm, fish and chips, maybe even an ice cream if she's lucky. Number 4. Dorset Knobs. Dorset Knobs are made from bread dough enriched with extra sugar and butter. They are rolled and shaped by hand and baked 3 times. They're named after their shape's resemblance to Dorset knob buttons, but have also been compared in size to doorknobs. Dorset knobs are typically eaten with cheese, for example a Dorset blue vinny. They were said by his parlour-maid to have been a favourite food of local author Thomas Hardy. As they're so hard, they are also eaten by first soaking them in sweet tea. The practice of Dorset knob throwing began in 2008 at a festival in the Dorset village of Cadstock, inspired by a Yorkshire pudding throwing game that the organisers had seen on television. The competition is now held every year on the first Sunday in May. The record throw of 31.9 metres, or 105 foot, was set in 2019. Other events at the festival included a knob and spoon race, knob darts, knob painting, and guess the weight of the knob. Number 3. Sussex Pond Pudding. You may have seen this calorific pudding in a recent series of the Great British Bake Off, or the Great British Baking Show in the US. It's made by wrapping stodgy suet pastry around a whole lemon with butter and sugar. The dish is then steamed for several hours, turning the lemon into a sweet, sticky citrus goo that oozes out when the pudding is cut. It was first recorded in Hannah Woolley's 1672 book, The Queen-like Closet. This rich and heavy pudding has gone out of fashion over the years, perhaps due to diet consciousness, although the British chef Heston Blumenthal has served it as part of his campaign to revive historic British foods. Number 2. Parmo. The name Parmo is a reference to the American dish chicken parmesan, which is made from tomato sauce and mozzarella, which itself is a derivation of the Italian aubergine parmigiana. It's a takeaway dish popular in the northeast of England and consists of a large, deep-fried, flattened chicken breast, topped with a white bechamel sauce and about half a block of cheese. Each Parmo averages around 2,600 calories, containing 150 grams of fat. Parmo is said to have been created by Nikos Harris, a Greek-American Navy chef. He was wounded off the coast of France and brought to the United Kingdom to be treated at what is now the James Cook University Hospital in Middlesbrough. He stayed in Middlesbrough and opened a restaurant, the American Grill, on Lenthorpe Road, where he created the Parmo in 1958. His son-in-law, Caramello, still lived in Teesside as of 2014, continuing the family tradition. Number 1. Stinking Bishop. Even the boldest cheese fan should think twice before sampling some stinking Bishop. The Gloucestershire delicacy is said to smell of dirty socks and wet towels. The distinctive odour comes from the process with which the cheese is washed during its ripening. It's immersed in perry, made from the local stinking Bishop pear, from which the cheese gets its name, every 4 weeks while it matures. To increase the moisture content and to encourage bacterial activity, salt is not added until the cheese is removed from its mould. Sales of this overpowering cheese increased 500% when it was used to revive Wallace from the dead in the 2005 children's film Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. So those were 10 obscure and strange foods from England. If you feel any are missing from this list, please do add them to the comments below. And of course, if you have tried any of the foods in this list, please let us know. Until next time, goodbye.